Hello friends, this video on Mineral Nutrition Part 8 is brought to you by examfear.com. No more fear from exam. Now we will talk about metabolism of nitrogen. You might be surprised why are we talking only about nitrogen. That is because after the non-mineral elements carbon, hydrogen and oxygen, the most important material or a mineral for the plant is nitrogen. So since nitrogen is most important, so we will discuss about the nitrogen cycle. That is how nitrogen is converted from one form to another on the earth and why is it converted into different forms. So we will have a detailed discussion on nitrogen metabolism. So now we will talk about nitrogen cycle. So what do we mean by nitrogen cycle? Cycle generally refers to any cyclic process. That is the process wherever the point where it starts, it comes back to the same point. Now when you talk about nitrogen on earth mostly is found by itself as nitrogen gas, that is dinitrogen gas in the atmosphere. But this nitrogen is converted into many different chemical forms. But at the end again it goes back as nitrogen gas to the atmosphere. So this entire cycle of nitrogen where it gets converted into many different forms but again comes back to the atmosphere as dinitrogen gas. This entire cycle is known as nitrogen cycle. So process by which nitrogen is converted into various chemical forms, that is known as nitrogen cycle. So now we will talk about, in this topic, we will talk about the various processes which together form the nitrogen cycle. This is a very important part of this ecosystem, the way we have carbon cycle. Similarly, nitrogen cycle is also a very important part of the ecosystem, because it actually maintains a balance in the nitrogen, in the different forms of nitrogen rather. Now the first question that you might ask is why nitrogen needs to be converted into so many different chemical forms. So let us try to answer that. Why conversion into various chemical forms? Okay, if nitrogen is there in the atmosphere, let it be there as it is. Why it needs to be converted into so many different forms? Now the primary reason behind that is nitrogen gas which is present in the atmosphere is not a gas which interacts with a lot of other elements. So the gas itself is inert, so it does not react with others, plus it is in an usable form. It is not in a usable form, so the plants and animals cannot utilize it. So even though if you think of the percentage of nitrogen, it is huge, right? So almost 78% of the Earth's atmosphere is nitrogen, and that is a huge number, 78%. So roughly it is almost 80% of our atmosphere is nitrogen. Remaining 20% has all other gases. So if you look at the composition, you can just imagine how much of nitrogen is there in the atmosphere. So in this picture, wherever you see the red colored capsules or the maroon brown capsules, they represent nitrogen. So here is the denominations. So this maroon color is nitrogen, carbon dioxide is yellow, green is oxygen, purple is methane, and argon is blue. So here if you see, the number of brown capsules are very high when compared to all other gases. So nitrogen is present in abundance in the atmosphere, but this nitrogen is inert and it is not in a usable form. So the living organisms cannot utilize it. So then there is no use of so much of nitrogen being present in the atmosphere, because it is non-reactive and unusable by plants. So when I say plants, obviously animals are also dependent on plants. So it is not usable by any living organism. Therefore, chemical processes were necessary to convert the gaseous nitrogen into compounds such as nitrate or ammonia, which can be used by plants. So basically, during the course of nitrogen cycle, the dinitrogen or the nitrogen gas which is present in the atmosphere gets converted into nitrate or ammonia. Ammonia is NH3 and nitrate is NO3-. So these are the two forms which can be utilized by the plants, and all of them have nitrogen. So we need to convert this nitrogen into usable forms. So that is the purpose of having a nitrogen cycle, and that is the purpose why nitrogen gets converted into so many different forms. But when we study the nitrogen cycle, we'll see that at the end all these forms again get back to the original form, that is the nitrogen gas, and it is released in the atmosphere. So it is a cycle that ways. So now let us look at the various transformations of nitrogen. Now, as I said, everything happens as a stepwise process. Like if it starts with the nitrogen gas in atmosphere, then that gets converted into ammonia. Again, it gets converted to nitrite, that gets converted to nitrate. So it is like a series of process. So the transformation, the entire nitrogen cycle consists of many different processes. So some of the important processes which together constitute the nitrogen cycle are nitrogen fixation, nitrification, denitrification, and ammonification. So we will discuss about all these four processes, and all these together constitute the nitrogen cycle. Now before we talk about the nitrogen cycle as a whole, let us first talk about each of these processes, because if you understand all these four processes, understanding nitrogen cycle will become very easy. Thank you. Please visit www.examfear.com to watch more videos, attempt free online test, get free study material, find tutors and mentors. Thank you once again.